Why Invincible is the best superhero show ever. In addition to being a huge cartoon fan, I am also a pretty big fan of the two main superhero franchises, with one clearly being better than the other. Marvel. When it comes to superhero movies, Marvel's fantastic. Infinity War is legitimately one of my favorite movies of all time. Guardians of the Galaxy is just amazing in every way, and I can never get enough of Captain America Civil War. And then DC has Joker and the Amazing Justice League movie. No, not that one. This one. Because, duh. But what the two franchises seemed to lack was a top-of-the-line TV show. Now, Disney has been pumping out Marvel TV shows like crazy, but a lot of them have been kind of mid or just straight-up garbage. Now, don't get me wrong, there's some good ones in there, like Loki or WandaVision, and I enjoyed Hawkeye too, and What If is fun enough, but none of those Marvel superhero shows, except maybe Loki, are incredible. And then on the other side, all the DC live-action shows bore me, so I'm not going to talk about or watch any of them. While Harley Quinn is pretty great, My Adventures with Superman was a very pleasant surprise, and I can respect the crap out of Young Justice and the OG Teen Titans, I still don't think any of those superhero TV shows can quite compare to... I have literally always wanted to do that. Can check that off my bucket list. Invincible, it's so good, guys. It's so good. The showrunner is Robert Kirkman, who not only directed the show, he also wrote the 144 issues of the Invincible comic book, which spanned from 2003 to 2018. Invincible was a thing before I was even born. That's so wild. I have looked at getting some of the Invincible compendiums to add to my book collection, but these prices be whack. It was time to read anyway, so I'll just watch the fantastic show instead. The show debuted back in March of 2021 and became an instant surprise hit. I'll explain why I think that is in just a minute. I will say that, just like with Arcane, I came into the show with zero knowledge on any of the previous source material at all. Which, might I say, made the experience, especially during that one scene in episode 1, that much better. If you've seen the show, you know what scene I'm talking about. I can't really post it here on YouTube though, for obvious reasons. Basically, this show is bloodier than pretty much any other animated show ever. I think that that's mostly agreed upon by everyone, which honestly might just be the first point I'll give to this show's wild popularity. It can be summed up by saying just the shock factor. The shock factor that this show provides in terms of its gruesome visuals and shocking brutality is likely what brought in a good chunk of the show's initial viewers. Invincible is a show that is not even close to being afraid to go to some violent extremes like smooshing heads, eating off people's limbs, and just murdering folks out the wazoo. That certainly makes it stand out in comparison to other superhero shows that can sometimes be afraid to show even a little gash on someone's arm, let alone showcase death on the scale that Invincible does. People like extremes, and Invincible is certainly extreme. I think Kirkman recognized that leaning on that element of his comics in this show was a must if you wanted the type of reaction he got. So while the shock value of the animated gore got people to stay initially, it was likely the great storyline that had them stay for the long haul. Invincible was a show filled to the brim with twists and turns that make every new episode more captivating than the last. What's great about that one scene I talked about earlier is that it immediately throws the viewer into a crazy mystery with a question about one of our lead characters that we crave to have answered. That looming plotline makes the more dull and stereotypical plotlines that follow the Guardians or the Protectors that much more interesting. And then one of the more undervalued story beats might just be one of the show's best, and that is when it follows the non-superhero characters. Some of the show's more interesting characters are the ones without the superpowers, like Debbie, Cecil, and Amber. They serve as and are able to keep the story that much more grounded and human, as their characters give off a sense of deeper emotion and sophistication that some of the superhuman cast doesn't quite have. So I can't hold back this topic any longer. It's now time to talk about the part of the show that everyone talks about first whenever the show pops up in conversation, and that is of course the insanely loaded voice acting talent that the show has. It really is bonkers just how many names are attached to this singular franchise, and the show even leaned all into that part of itself in its most recent trailer. Like, look at this. It looks less like a trailer and more like the end credits of a movie. To keep this from being half of the video, I'll just rattle off some of the big names the show has, cause it's like a million. And if I mispronounce them, unsubscribe. So you got Steven Yeun, J.K. Simmons, Mark Hamill, Gillian Jacobs, Seth Rogen, Jason Mantzoukas, Sandra Oh, Walton Goggins, Justin Roiland, among many others. And apparently I just found out heckin' Jonathan Groff is in the show. I don't really know who or when or where, but he's in the show, which is crazy. And anyway, last, I'll just mention that as this video is being made, Season 2 is currently making its way out onto Amazon Prime Video. There are currently 4 episodes that have been released, and to see where Kirkman is taking the show after the crazy Season 1 finale is all kinds of enjoyable. So while the show currently is on a mid-season hiatus, I'm sure that what will come will be really amazing and probably leave every viewer in a sheer state of awe. And all of that is just why Invincible is the best superhero show.